Bill Jenks.
Here.
Dave Racer.
Here.
And Keith Thurl will be absent.
Okay, any public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. So, I'd like again to discuss about the budget item, and I want to address you directly, Steve. I want you to tell me how this is not hypocrisy when we budget $5,000 for sandwiches, but we cut the $600 park bench from the budget and the cover for the pool, but we keep the 5,000 sandwiches. So I want you to tell me that's not hypocrisy. We don't cut any of that.
It's not.
So it's not? Well, I just want to hear your opinion because I think it is. Yeah. Why wouldn't we? Why we can skip the sandwich and do the park bench? But that's your opinion. So the other thing I would like also to address our solicitor. Maybe we can once and for all clarify for the whomever is keeping the time, because sometimes seems Fred Mogul, sometimes council president, that objections on Sunshine Act are not part of the time for public comments. Okay, Mr. Lutz was here last time, and he was more concerned to prove that, you know, the immigrant commenter did not know zoning regulations, instead of saying, no, the Sunshine Act objection is not timed, because they put it together with my public comments, although I did say it's a Sunshine Act objection. So, and finally on the agenda, we have more and more and more people who seem to have water meter issues. I think that I look at my water meter, it has a transmitter. I think we need to look into advancing into the 21st century and have some method of warning a resident or a company that their water meter is running amok and that there's some leak somewhere that's easily provable. I mean, the guys are reading them just by driving on the street. Why can't we have something in the home that reads the same meter in the basement and says, hey, your toilet's running? So there are thousands and thousands of dollars that people have to pay just because these accidents happen. I see in the agenda some pipe that broke. So we should be able to offer this for our constituents, at least as an option. I'm sure there are apps, there are other things that nowadays we can talk about it. And finally, I commend about having finally cameras installed. I don't remember council approving cameras. I remember having a discussion on that, but I don't know at what part we approved that. Again, I'm not against them. I just don't know, because things seem popping up, just like the asphalt in front of the Atonement Church just popped up without any approval from anybody overnight. Same thing here. So I like if there can be some transparency when this, yes, because then we have to spend money to take the asphalt out. So, okay, that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, cash update.
At the end of February, cash and investments totaled $7,476,000, a decrease of $353 from the end of January. This is expected and should likely be the low point for the year. Interest rates continue on a downward trend, not significant. The Tompkins rates are in the 3% range. The Plickett rates still are above 4 and are slightly higher than the interest rate that we've locked in on our 20-year loan. There are 2 grants pending at this time. One would be for the fourth quarter bike sharing station and the balance of the Stonehouse reimbursement. The Pliget investments, which now total, next page, now total $6,857,000. We hit our low point without having to touch the term investments, which is always a good sign. Left in the class, which I use for operations, $100,000, $2 million left in the prime. The debt proceeds have not been touched. There has not been current year disbursements on the garage, but there are final payments that will be due out of those funds. And liquid fuels is at a low point at 25. Just on Monday, I received the 25 distribution, and that money came in. It was $361,000. I kept what I needed for operations and moved the rest into Pliget. Okay. Any question on our cash position? You can see the interest rates continue to trend downward. As long as we stay above 4, we're still in a good position. Anyone have a crystal ball? We can look at when the tax proceeds start rolling in and possibly moving more funds to the terms. For the month of February, some of the transactions of note, there are no current real estate tax collections for the current year. They will begin in March. Other local taxes totaled $338,000. We did receive our first reimbursement on the pedestrian bridge of $128,000. We finally received a reimbursement on the police computers, which is actually from the third quarter of '24. And we did bill the sidewalk work to the residents. That was billing that should have occurred in 2024, but was delayed due to the contractor's delays. For the month of February, revenues totaled $1,044,000, bringing the year-to-date total to $2,772,000. Transactions of note on the expenditure side, we made the final payment on the 2024 water project for $28,000. We are still paying the down payments and upfront costs for our insurance premiums. The month of February, they totaled $214,000. There was some interest in tracking the cost for the recent weather, the winter maintenance. Through the end of February, we actually have exceeded our budget for salt purchase, and I understand there's one more delivery that's coming. Maybe, okay. For snow removal, we are likewise right at where we are for budget, but with the first payroll process for March, we have exceeded our budget there. So the hope now is that we can end the year when we get into December with no events. So everybody keep their fingers crossed there. We also made a payment on phase 2 of the library documentation, the electronic library, for $27,000. Total expenditures for the month were $1,858,000, bringing the year-to-date total to $3,967,000. On a net basis, expenditures did exceed revenues for the month by $814,000. On a year-to-date basis, expenditures exceeding revenue by $1,195,000. When that total is added to the beginning of the year fund balance, our overall fund balance at the end of February is $8,259,000, 1.9 of which is reserved, leaving unreserved fund balance of $6,296,000. Again, that is our low point. We will now start to trend upwards with the collection of real estate taxes. Pending activity at the end of February, in addition to the grant reimbursements, was open permit fees of $8,000. So we would have an unreserved fund balance, including the pending activity, of $6,372,000. Any questions on those results? Okay. When we look at our current year variances, there's nothing particular of note during the month of February. I did, however, notice a variance with the firefighter staffing cost. When we were budgeting at the end of '24, we became aware of the resignation of one of the 3 recently hired firefighters. And we made an adjustment to our budgeted salary amount, that we knew that we were not gonna fill that vacancy, and budgeted accordingly. What I'm finding, however, that we are incurring more costs because we are actually filling that vacancy as well as the vacancy of the firefighter that resigned in January. So we are incurring lots of overtime costs.
I would add to that, there's also an employee in that department that is still out on a workers' comp injury. He is back in a light duty capacity, but that does not fill that on duty shift.
So our budget was built with a 3 minimum staff, and what we're actually seeing is that there is a 4 minimum staff.
Not mandated. It's not mandated, but past practice was to fill that if someone volunteered for it.
So there is a current variance year to date of 18,000. That number will continue to grow, and I'll continue to update that number for you. The reserves at the end of February, we add additional 10,000 to the MS4 reserve. We have exhausted what we had previously reserved with the payment for the library system. We also have exhausted our reserve, the carryover from the water project, as that is now complete. We received the grant reimbursement that we were anticipating for the Penn Bridge, and we made an additional payment on the Stone House. We did receive one of, I believe, several contributions that will be coming from developers.
We received payment for the 4th and only pump station from the Windsor Street semis, which I believe was $15,000, and from R.M. Palmer, which was $25,000.
That will be a March receipt. And we will continue to reserve for those receipts as they come in.
And there will be an update on that overall project at the next infrastructure meeting.
Any question on our reserves or our fund balance position?
Pretty straightforward.
All right. As I said, there is no current real estate taxes collected during the month of February. Mid-January, everything that was uncollected from 2024 was turned over to the county for collection. That total was $113,000, represented approximately 2% of what was collectible, and was about 0.5% more than we were in the prior year. So the only receipts of real estate taxes during February were delinquent taxes received from the county, as well as a few dollars in interim taxes. For the month, taxes totaled $3,000, bringing our year-to-date total to $36,000. The new bills have been printed and mailed. When we budgeted on an assessed value. The most recent abstract, when we were budgeting, was dated October 25th. That was for $1,045,000,000. But we were also aware of a court order which reduced Home Depot. So we actually budgeted on the reduced value excluding Home Depot. When the bills were printed in January, the assessed value was $1,058,000,000, an increase of 13 since we had budgeted. Those changes came primarily from the annual appeals process, which covered 57 borough properties, both residential and commercial, netted a negative $4.5 million, unfortunately. That was offset by the new construction that was completed at the Highlands for $16 million. All other properties netted to about $1 million, and that was the difference. So we do have the potential of additional real estate tax revenue, and I did apply the collection rate of 98% because we were experiencing 2% uncollected, and I included that in variances. What will reduce that will be further reductions as a result of court orders. So you never know what properties are out there that will be going for appeals. Other local taxes during February, we collected $338,000, bringing our year-to-date total to $916,000. It is a positive variance as a result of the real estate transfer tax that had been received in January, the largest piece of that coming from the mini mills. I haven't included real estate transfer tax in our variances for the current year. because I've, just this morning received the March receipt of February activity. It's only 29,000 and it's below what 1/12 of the budget would be. So until we actually see the real estate activity on an upward trend, I'm not gonna include any of those funds as a positive variance available to use for other spending.
Well, I think
Does everyone-
we're spending anyway.
Does everyone agree with that approach?
We're spending it, that's an option.
For earned income tax for the month of February, we received 208,000. Already received my March distribution, which on the quarterly cycle is the high one of 452,000, bringing the year-to-date total to 787,000. It is positive variance compared to last year, so we're on a good trend there. Mercantile tax for the month of February, we received 49,000, we received 49,000, bringing our year-to-date total to 124, and we are slightly ahead of last year. The big receipts will come in May with the April due date. Local services tax for the month of February, we received 31,000. We received the March distribution earlier this week, 110,000, bringing the year-to-date total to 143,000, a small positive variance compared to last year. Any question on February or year-to-date revenues?
Nope. Do we have any questions?
Yep, that's good.
All right, expenditures, the only expense related to the garage that was incurred in February was the extension of the builder's risk insurance of 1,000. That unfortunately is not grant reimbursable. We did also approve a change order for Bolton, which increased the balance due there. My best estimate of what we might exceed the current year balance based on the current contracts is 76,000, and I did include that in our variance schedule. Excuse me. To Bolton, there was a payment act approved by the infrastructure committee and is pending council's approval next week for 48,000. What that will leave on that contract is about 6,000 in construction and the $15,000 retainer. For the other contractors, what we're looking at is the release of the retainer. I believe Jim spoke to Frank Watts at Berkey, and the release of most of the retainers is expected to be in March, probably approval in April. Once those final payments are made, then the final grant reimbursement can be completed. And it's the plumbing and the heating, electric. On the Stonehouse, during February, we did receive 14,000 in grant reimbursement, which brought us up to a total of 400,000 for that piece of the grant. There's one additional piece for 60,000, a different funding source. That's multi.
So, PTRP, which is a separate program, that was money we had originally been awarded for the Berkshire Heights Playground that we asked to flip to the Stonehouse project.
Okay. During February, we did make payment on application number application number 6 for 17,000, leaving just the retainer to be released, 27,000. On the water project, we did make final payment for 28,000. On the sidewalks, both application number 2 and 3 were approved by the infrastructure committee and is pending council approval next week. On the pedestrian bridge, we did receive reimbursement. The work on the culvert has begun. These were both under the same contract because they were both under the same grant award. The culvert work has begun and is, I believe, completed this time. The application number 7 is for the culvert work. The infrastructure committee approved 96,000. That is pending council's approval next week. We received the next, which is most of the balance, in the amount of 67, is pending the infrastructure committee's approval. Excuse me.
Have a day. Take your time.
The only capital project expenditure thus far for 25 approved list has been on the library system for $27,000. Included in this week's check run, which will be a March disbursement, will be the payment for the 3 police cars. We also took delivery on the bucket truck, and that payment will be made as soon as I get some real estate tax receipts.
It's a really nice truck. I saw it
That
last
one
week.
for the departments.
Tree department.
Tree,
Oh.
bucket truck.
I know I just signed a check yesterday for the parks vehicle.
Not for parks, for the 3 police vehicles right there.
Well, it said parks on it.
We didn't get that.
92,000
92 is for 2 of the police
for the
vehicles.
vehicle.
The tree truck was 300 some thousand.
No, I'm
The
talking.
92 was 2 police cars.
Parks.
And we got another car that replaced the car that was totaled, but that came from.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
The 92,000 was 2 police vehicles. Any questions on February results?
Well done, thank you.
Next item is pension.
Moving on to pension.
I'll just get it up. All right, Gerard did supply me with the year-end asset values, which total 31,000 for all the plans. You can see it was a significant increase since the end of '23, and that will be the basic of the asset value that would be used for the 1/1/25 valuation.
So it's up $3.2 million.
At next month's meeting, Ron Bittner will be here, and we have been notified that Ron will be retiring at the end of April. He will be bringing his successor, Bill Smith, with him, no relation. And they'll be discussing some options that we can use for evaluating the pension plans for 1/1/25, changing some of the assumption rates. At this time, we're looking at potentially making the first quarter MMO payment. The MMO had been approved for $1,568,000. That is made up of 2 components: the defined contribution, which is satisfied, that obligation with each and every payroll based on eligible payroll for the participants in that plan. 10% is contributed. The balance is defined benefit plans. That is all of the police officers and a shrinking base of grandfathered employees. I believe there are 4 firefighters and 10 non-uniform members remaining. The difference between that obligation, which is $1,357,000, and what we anticipate in receiving in state aid in the fall, which is $564,000, leaves a gap. We have historically taken that gap and split it up over 4 quarters so that we don't have to fund that all at one shot. So at this time, I'm suggesting a quarterly contribution for 1 quarter of that gap, or $198,000.
That's what we budgeted.
Yes. At this time, there's no reason to suggest changing that amount.
All right, so we need, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, second. Motion is second to approve paying $198,398.14 for the first quarter MMO. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes.
Now, the valuation that Ron will be discussing at the next meeting, any change to any of the valuation assumptions will not affect these contributions. They will be future MMOs.
Yep.
I should also note that the audit is concluded without any issues, and at the next
Nice job.
at the next meeting, Nick will be here from Herbine
Okay.
to present the audit results.
Great.
And flipping numbers this year.
Okay. Any other questions on the pension? All right, moving on. Thank you, fellas.
You can stop talking now?
I can stop
Thank you.
talking now.
Thank you, relax.
Thank you.
All right, Berks EIT Business
Take it
Village
away.
Tax Enforcement.
So I think everyone's aware of first earned income tax flex business privilege license for the borough. I am on the executive committee. We meet quarterly. One of the things that has been a topic of discussion that came up about 6 months ago is for them to start a little bit more strong-handed enforcement. I think that's a tactful way of saying it, including requiring contractors that are working on behalf of, in our case, the borough, in the school district's case, the school district, to apply for business privilege tax licenses. And when this first came up, I had a bunch of questions. Typically, a contractor, a business owner, a company is only paying business privilege tax if they're headquartered and located in the borough. So one of my initial questions was, Berkey, CMS, think of all the contractors we award projects to that don't have a physical location here. They are simply coming into the borough to build something, repair something. How would that work and why would they be subject to the tax? And some back and forth conversation with Becky Iannelli, who's the executive director of Berks CIT. Any business that effectively is doing work here for more than 15 days would be required to pay business privilege tax. They will take out of what they would be required to pay for their Wyomissing business privilege tax any receipts from either their home operation, home company, or other places that they're doing business. Chris and I had discussed this last year. We were waiting for this formal letter to actually come to bring it to finance and eventually council. Our concern is, I said I think we need to put something in our bid specs moving forward, notifying contractors they're required to do this, both obtain the license and pay the business privilege tax. So, I at least have a concern that that is going to potentially impact the price that we get when we put projects out to bid. I know the school district shares that concern. It effectively is what it is.
Yeah, well, it depends on whether they're paying tax in another jurisdiction in the same country. If they are, this wouldn't have an impact on it, but if they're not, then it will have an impact. So we don't really know how it will shake out, but there's a risk that Michelle has described that it could have an impact on how our bidding process unfolds. But this is not a change in the law. It's just an amplified collection effort by Berks CIT. So it is money that is owed to the borough and the school district. It just may or may not have been collected in the past.
Is this affecting personal homeowners too? So if we bring in a contractor who's doing work, now they have to do that too, which means
They are already subject to that tax.
Okay.
Whether they're,
Registering and paying it.
whether they're complying with the tax obligation, we don't know.
Okay.
But this collection effort is targeting these public contracts. The collection effort is to go after borough and school district contractors' projects. So they're not undertaking a targeted collection effort with regard to, residential.
Okay, I just want to make sure the residents can still get people to come in and do work.
The caveat to that is I would not be surprised if moving forward, similar to I give the infrastructure committee a report showing every permit that was issued for the past month and the contractor who pulled it. I could see collection efforts by Berks CIT of, can we have a monthly report of which contractors pulled permits?
Well, what this letter indicates is that they're undertaking this effort because they feel they have the resources to do this at this time. But there's certainly, I think is implied that they will continue to seek out strategies to go after everybody who may owe this tax.
So is it likely these people are paying taxes to the wrong place?
No, I mean, my guess is they're all registered, if where their like their home operation is, requires business privilege tax. I'm trying to think of, Bond Construction. His home office is up here on Penn Avenue, he's registered here. He's paying business privilege mercantile tax to us, and my guess is in his head, he probably thinks that all he needs to do, because every municipality has different regulations on whether or not they even collect these different types of taxes. So, I mean, to me, if I were a contractor, am I going through the effort of every municipality I work in when I pull a permit? I mean, some places do tell you up front you need to register with a contractor's license, and then there's all these other things that go along with that, but I'm guessing most of them are not asking the question up front. Do I need to separately register for a business privilege license, and then what else do I need to do on top of that? I've never been asked that question in almost 17 years of taking phone calls about permits.
Construction Masters, for example, does a lot of work in the borough.
Yes.
However, their home office is in the Wilson School District, and I can guarantee you Wilson is collecting that for them.
Right.
So now when they file their Wilson return, they'll say this portion of my income has already been paid to Wyomissing, and so they will reduce what they paid to Wilson.
Just a monitoring.
So if Slough is doing a project, doing an excavation project, are they not paying taxes on the income that they've earned from that particular project? Haven't they been paying taxes forever for those projects?
Well, they're a bad example because they're based in Wyomissing.
I'm sorry?
I said that's somewhat of a bad example.
Yeah, well, okay.
But
assume
think
they're
of-
from Wilson then.
Yeah, think of Panaco Excavating, not based in Wyomissing, doesn't have an office here, but just came in to do some repair work at the mall. Say that took longer than 15 days, they would be required to apply for a business privilege license and then pay tax on.
But I guess what I'm asking is, it would seem to me that all the contractors have been paying taxes on what they've been doing everywhere in Pennsylvania, for starters.
Not
Some kind
necessarily.
of tax,
What's
some
that?
kind of taxes.
We're not talking about income tax, we're talking about gross receipts.
Well,
And not all municipalities collect that type of tax.
so it's gross receipts tax.
It's gross receipts, it's not income.
Is this 15 days over the course of a year or 15 consecutive days? So they work for 13 days and then
My understanding is if they're in here for a project, I mean, it says right there, transactions in a jurisdiction for all are part of 15 or more days within the
they,
calendar
then the
year.
calendar year, okay.
Well, the social
I do.
security guys that are working now can come find these guys.
There you go. Bring it down to local.
So what are we proposing to do here?
I don't, there's no action required as part of this, it's mainly for informational purposes. The second part of a three-part request from PERC CIT is regarding the execution of this confidential disclosure covenant, which they're asking all of the school districts and municipalities that they represent to sign and return to them. Chris, did you have any concerns?
No, I think this is fine. I'm not sure when we would ever do this, but, I mean, they just want us to agree that if we request information from them about taxpayers, that it's confidential.
And I did ask the question of Becky Iannelli, we can use it and share it internally. It's just not something we would disclose otherwise. That was a staff concern.
But, I mean, I think it's a good idea to put in writing that we agree that information about taxpayers is confidential.
Yes. And then the third part of the communication / request is PERC CIT is asking both the borough and the school district to split the cost to hire an external auditor to audit business records for businesses paying business privilege tax. I would assume this is to go in and make sure that what is being reported is actually accurate. Mark Boyer and I spoke after we received the letter. We both have a bunch of questions. We have a meeting set up with Becky next Tuesday before council. Just unfortunately, between me being at a conference, Mark's at a conference this week, and Becky's availability, that was as soon as we could get it scheduled.
Is there a
So,
reason why Wilson's not involved as well?
because Wilson collects
Right.
their own.
Okay.
So, are they gonna offer a budget? I mean, I think.
I have no idea.
Giving a blank check on this is not
Yeah, I think
appropriate. I think we need to have a budget and a price.
Table, leave on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, could you at least take action on the covenant part?
I would recommend that. That's the confidentiality agreement.
Good, so, I'll make a motion to approve, recommended council approve executing confidential disclosure covenant with CIP.
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And then I'll also make a recommendation to the table, recommended the council, to pay half the external auditor cost, half being paid by the school, Wyomissing area school district, for the auditing business records of the borough paying earned income tax to person method.
Second.
Motion and second, all those, oops. Yeah, motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they think that's gonna cost.
Agreed.
They have no idea.
That's the problem. Then how much is it gonna raise its revenue?
That's
Mhm.
exactly right. And the audit,
What's my
they're only gonna
ROI?
audit people that have actually submitted the proper paperwork. They aren't gonna be auditing who should be applying for the tax. So, that's,
Well, with some of the taxes, you have to give the federal tax return, so I'm not sure what they would honor.
it's not monitoring nightmare, but that's.
All right, moving on, internal procedures to prevent fraud.
Jana had shared with me back in December the article that was included when the agenda was sent out about borough secretary slash, well, I guess she was, sorry, township secretaries, alleged stealing of roughly $500,000, and suggested perhaps as part of an updated this meeting or a council meeting, I give an overview on what we do internally to prevent fraud. So there's several things in place. Any invoice payable that comes in typically goes through a two-step process. Say Greg is ordering uniforms for the Parks and Maintenance Department. He's gonna get an invoice from, we're just gonna say Cintas. He's gonna sign off on it. It goes in a folder that then comes to me. I review it and sign off on it, and then it gets processed as part of that week's payables, aka check run. There are 2 signatures required on all ACH payments or checks that go out the door of the borough. One is typically mine, one is typically Dave's as the treasurer. So when Dave is signing that check, that approved payable invoice that the department head and I have now signed off on is also available for a third set of eyes, which would be Dave's or the treasurer's to take a look at as well.
It's attached to the check. So, like, you get it.
If I'm not available or Dave's not available, Bill is the backup check signer as the president of council. So that's how the payables process works. In terms of credit cards, cause that was a piece of this, department heads are issued borough credit cards. Anytime, most of them have what, a $500 to $1,000 limit. I think I'm the exception to that, and you're the exception to that.
I still have $5,000.
Anytime Phyllis requests the bank to open a credit card in a new employee's name, a letter is mailed to me at my home address, notifying me of that so that the letter doesn't come here, somebody else grabs it, hides it, that I never know about it. When the credit card statement comes every month, it is broken down by card number, so anything I put on my borough credit card is one line. Anything Phyllis, Melissa, Greg, Jim, John, Ethan put on there, it's all separate. Obviously, as we make purchases, we send the the receipts with the approval to Kathy so that she can cross-match them to the monthly statement when it comes in. That statement is also part of what I look at, what Dave looks at, and is kept in Phyllis's financial records. What am I missing in terms of?
Well, the highest form of assurance is obviously the audit,
Sure.
and they never found any type of fraud. We have a small staff, so separation of duties, which is the primary internal control, is minimal because there's just not enough people. But as Michelle described, we do as best we can with the size of the staff. To address the lack of segregation regarding the recording and the reconciling of cash, because I do all of that on a monthly basis. My reconciliations are reviewed by the borough's treasurer. So Dave comes in, or predecessors have come in, and actually look at my bank reconciliations, and they can see that the cash that I'm reporting to you is actually in the bank and agrees to the bank statements, with very few timing differences for reconciling items. So, very little cash takes place that doesn't go through the cash register. Our petty cash records, which is another area of very foolish fraud.
Potential.
We handled in a year's time maybe 24 transactions.
Yeah.
It's just
And you keep what, $200 in there?
400.
Yeah, I looked at it, it's really, it's dollars, it's not,
It's de minimis.
Yes.
de minimis.
It is
Very
indeed.
good word, de minimis.
It is indeed. So we have multiple layers of review in place. Even the payables process, you know, the mail comes in and is routed to the department heads. Michelle described the approval. Kathy does all the entry. I review every entry that Kathy makes. So I'm questioning things in addition to Kathy questioning things. We're going back to department heads. You know, this invoice says this, what is this for? We don't, you know, this description is vague. Can you give us more information? So, there's really no financial transactions that occur without multiple levels of detail.
And eyes on them.
Yes. As far as check writing, I am intentionally not a check signer because I'm recording everything. I have no check writing authority. So if I produce a check, I cannot sign the check. It requires two other people to sign the check. I can move money to fund all our activity, to fund payroll, to fund the check run. But when I move the large sum of money to invest in Pliget or redeem from Pliget as needed for operations, every transaction I make results in an email to Michelle. So the only weakness there would be if Michelle and I were colluding and
Yeah.
gonna be leaving together, so.
Bermuda.
Collusion, but I don't see that.
Aruba, Bermuda.
Someplace with no extradition.
You two
What
were
about,
cahoots.
what about the Amazon account? Like, how do you differentiate who's, I mean, there's a lot of Amazon purchases.
Amazon is charged to the respective department head's credit card. So every one of those transactions appear on the credit card statement. So there's not an Amazon charge, there's an Amazon account, and those charges go to the respective Visa cards.
And we're all able to log in, like I have a login, you have a login, Melissa has a login, Brandy has a login. So that's another way to tie back to who ordered this.
But all the charges are on that credit card statement that gets.
Yeah, they are, but they're all listed as just Amazon, 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 Amazon.
Yes,
No,
but then-
they have the order detail with them. I can tell you on a particular order.
You just talk about what we get versus what you get.
Oh,
Right.
I'm thinking about like the credit card slip of, the credit card
We're
slip will
not
just
seeing
say.
it.
No, we're not seeing that.
Yeah.
it says playground
Right.
supply. We try to include a vendor's name there to make it more meaningful. But you shouldn't just be seeing Amazon, it should be some type of Amazon with a vendor name.
Do we have any situations where we as the borough receive cash that is unaccounted for in capacity?
Most cash is collected at the counter through the cash register. Again, the front desk person is receiving that, putting it in the register. The utility clerk is posting those payments. I'm looking at the reconciliation after the fact. So all cash business has an opportunity to not ring it and put it in your pocket. that.
It would be somewhat hard to do that though, in the sense of, one, when we accept a cash payment, there's a 3-part receipt that's written out. Think of the things we accept cash payments for: utility payments and permits, and bulk tags are the primary ones. With every single one of those things, there's another piece to it that is gonna raise a red flag if
Your
the cash is
utility
not
account
part of it. If
doesn't
you pay in
reflect
cash and
the
you have a
payment.
receipt, I paid in cash, and Kim's like, I never got the money, that's gonna raise a red flag for us. Well, this person has a receipt, what happened to the cash? And there is a camera on that front desk, mainly for security purposes, but worst case that we could go back and look at footage as to what exactly happened.
The only other cash that comes in that is not really significant is when Public Works sells,
Scrap metal.
excess scrap metal and excess equipment.
Yeah.
The last few weeks, I've received some cash, but they received a statement showing the sale, and if that was not recorded, it would be noticeable.
Who takes the cash to the bank and how often is it taken to the bank?
Kathy currently is taking it because Kim's schedule has been limited. It's taken as needed. We don't run every day to take $20. We register as and settle every day. But there's not a lot of cash coming in.
Right, okay.
Scrap metal, that's always a good idea.
Even
It
that
turns
com-
into a couple bucks.
But
Oh,
even-
no,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not arguing
Yeah,
with
that-
you.
Oh, yeah.
Around here, it's gotta be.
Even that comes with a receipt.
Well,
Yes.
Yes, it does.
And some of the places now, they don't give cash out, they give you a check.
Perfect.
And only certain guys in the department can go there and do that.
I'm not questioning. Just color. Okay. Anybody have any other questions regarding this? And I think,
Does that satisfy you?
Yeah, no, I didn't have any, I didn't suspect anything bad was going on, but I thought it would be helpful for us to have an explanation, because it's not unusual to see articles like this in the paper. I
No.
thought we ought to know.
I would have liked more how they, specifically how they did it, but it didn't.
It says how they did it.
It shows the credit card statements in the
Yeah.
article.
It's crazy.
But,
DraftKings. I'm not a betting girl, so.
yeah,
Got a gambling addiction we don't know about?
and that was
I'm
clearly.
about as conservative as you get.
all right,
Thank you very much.
thank you, folks. Moving on to 575 Spring Street.
There's a credit, well, there's a credit of at least $1,727.55 on the utility account that used to serve the D&E buildings. After we got the request from Mr. Sherbanek for the $13,959.25 refund, Kim, who processes all utility payments, she went back and actually looked at the transaction history. Mr. Sherbanek, splitting that $13,959 up, the first $10,000 and change was actually paid at settlement by the prior owner. Mr. Sherbanek paid the $3,727.55 from the time period between settlement and when he notified us that he thought there was, and we confirmed something going on with the meter. Kim actually went one step further, because I was originally gonna propose we consider a refund request of up to that $10,000 payment the prior owner made. She went back to on the water usage records to 2008, and we could find no significant, yep, right there. I mean, the meter was all over the place between that 16-year period, probably because of the type of use of the property. It was a hotel. You had people that would go in and probably take 1-hour showers. You had people that would think nothing of running the faucet. I know and remember from conversations with Mike when he was in due diligence and doing his inspections, there were multiple leaks in one of the mechanical rooms that he said there were like 2 inches of water on the floor. So, I mean, I go back to the prior owners paid the amount, has not asked us in any capacity for any type of refund. Mike has. We know from when Mike purchased it until the point that the meter was looked at and identified, there is a legitimate credit due of $3,727.55. and that would be fair to credit. Now, he's also requesting that we transfer the credit from the account that it's on, which was the meter that served the banquet hall and what I will call the larger sprawling campus that is no longer, to the account that is metered and serves what were the former D&E buildings that are where the apartments are.
Yeah,
Does that all make sense?
okay. Yeah, that makes,
Still
I was
wondering
wondering, yeah.
what the $10,000 was for.
The amount due at the time of settlement for the utility bill.
Okay, all right, so there was a bill associated with that $10,000?
Yes. So, I mean, they pulled a certification pre-settlement, settlements on this date, what's the amount due? So, of that, the prior owner, which was JSK Holdings, paid the 10,000 and change. No questions asked.
So why is that a credit? Why?
It's not, is my point.
Because
That says there is a credit.
So the 10,000's been satisfied, there's still 3727 dangling out there.
It sounds like 10,000 wasn't a credit, they owed it and it was paid at settlement.
Correct, and this is, I think, my fault for being away last week when the agenda was being prepared. We originally thought there potentially was a credit of almost $14,000 until Kim went back.
okay, I understand.
Let's just say it didn't become clear until Kim was reviewing the transaction records that it was JSK that paid that $10,000, not Mr. Shervonic after settlement.
Does Mike agree with this?
He's aware of this, I've informed him of this in writing.
You confirmed, or Kim has confirmed that this credit request amount is the accurate figure.
Yes,
3727.
yes,
And that's a credit for post-purchase?
it is a credit for inaccurate billing on the meter that was taken off the banquet and larger facility that was found to be faulty.
After the sale.
Correct.
Okay. So is everybody comfortable just transferring that debit to, well, first of all, we have to make sure we're comfortable with the credit, but we're okay with just transferring to the other account? Everything is, right? Any issues with that?
I'll make that motion.
Just to make sure
Just
though,
want to make sure that there's not an issue with anybody.
the only credit amount is the 3727.55. That's
Correct.
the only active credit at this point, not the larger 10,
Correct.
14,000.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve recommending the council transferring credit $3,727.55 from utility account number 808 to utility account 9-00.
And the one we're transferring it away from, that meter at the moment is no longer capable of recurring anymore.
That meter's pulled and non-existent.
Okay, so there's no way for that meter to come back into existence. If you would replace that meter on the property, this would be a
There's a separate third meter at that old banquet area for the fire protection line, but that is a separate account, not part of the 8 dash. And, I mean, my understanding is once this credit is given, transferred, I would think we would take the 8 dash out of service because there's no meter tied to it.
Non-serviceable line going forward, you can't come back into service because the meter's been pulled.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Good work, Kim. Mr. Road.
This is a request that came in, Pennsylvania American was having, it sounds like, some issues with the meter change that was not communicated to the borough. This resident was billed for 3/4, with a sewer bill from the borough that was based off the meter reading that PA American was giving us. Never reached out to us at that point in time to question the bill until last week. So, once Kim was contacted, she got the accurate information, corrected everything, and the property owner is requesting a refund of $767.24. And this motion is two-part. One, to approve the credit, and the owner is also requesting a check, which I'm not aware we've ever done.
We have, in
Okay.
very rare circumstances, believe it or not, it is difficult to get a utility refund check out of the system. Because it crosses multiple
So-
phone lines.
How many other people does this affect?
It was just 10, it was just one, they had a new meter put in. And the way the meter's read, the decimal point was in a different spot, so he was being charged, I believe, 10 times what from us, because that's just the numbers, they didn't know it was changed.
So
And
Kim,
we paid the $767.24 at PMA. That's a jam.
The problem is, what
Or to
would
the
his,
sewer.
you know.
It's in the sewer, it's in the sewer account.
No.
so he paid the $767.24, but he shouldn't have never been billed it. So,
Right.
like Kim
Just
gets the meter reading from PA American for water, which is what she bills the sewer off of.
Right.
And since the meter reading was wrong from PA American with the much higher usage,
Then
the
that's
sewer bill
actually
was that much higher as well.
So it's a faulty meter.
No, it was a
No,
faulty
the reading
report.
was wrong.
The meter was
So it was
accurate
right.
for the
10
water.
times as much.
The water meter was accurate. The problem is the water meter reads differently than the former one. And they didn't know there was a change in the way the meter was read.
Like, you need to move the decimal
The
point.
decimal point literally needed to be moved,
Oh.
so he was being charged 10 times as much. The problem is, how long is it gonna take him for that credit to go, you're talking about, if it was 10 times as much, how long does he have to wait to?
That's why he's asking.
Well, the issue's been
Right.
fixed now, right?
Yes.
It has, but it was the fact that he waited 3 cycles to figure it out.
I'm
was
not opposed, I'm
frustrating.
just making the point, it is unusual we issue a refund check.
Well, what would it,
So
the
you're saying
average
his
monthly
normal
sewer
is
bill be?
$76, for 10 times the amount?
No, his normal would be like 30, because this was 3 cycles.
This was 3
right?
cycles, okay.
So you're talking,
I think that,
Credit.
are you just for an example looking at,
he said there was 3 cycles that he didn't notice it jumped.
And what's his average invoice?
that's the wrong property, that's 1188.
Sorry.
Go over to the left, it's like right in the middle,
That's just in here.
that's it.
Yep, that's all I've got for that one.
If you give me a second, I can still get the answer quickly.
You verified this number.
I mean, Kim verified that number
Right,
based
well,
on,
we mean the borough.
yes.
Do you have what their average?
I'd have to go log in quickly and get it, no, I don't.
What's the base? What's the average base?
That's off the top of my head for Pay American, I don't know, and I don't wanna misstate.
For sewer, I mean.
I know, but
Oh.
because it's different, because it's being billed off their system.
Well, I agree that obviously he's probably gonna do a refund. But I also agree that giving him credit would take him forever to get his money back. But it's hard to write a check out of the account, so.
It
How
can,
we feel
it
about
can be done, it's just, it takes a little effort.
I think our past practice has always been we just credit the account.
We
But
can't,
also that's
because
not-
it'd take him 10, 15 years to get the money back.
Well, Phyllis also said sometimes
I
they
mean,
do
their
write
bill's
checks.
$30 a month.
Oh, is that their average?
Yeah.
I was asking what that was.
Well, if you just,
increased
if you just look at the
10
number, and if
times.
it's threefold over a figure,
Yeah.
Do you
it
wanna
increased 10
give me like
times.
30 seconds and I can get you an answer?
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding from speaking with him is it jumped 10 times because that doesn't.
If it did jump 10 times.
So if it jumped 10 times and you took him 3 billing cycles, you're talking about $30 a billing cycle, not even $20 billing cycle. For him to pay that off is
Forever.
forever. Now, do you refund him for the second 2 billing cycles and not the first, and let him head up the first, because he should have noticed it, if it jumped 10 times the first, I don't know. But it took him
You
3
can't really
billing
do that
cycles
if
to,
you
I
say,
know.
yeah, there
It took
was
him
an
3
issue.
billing cycles.
Just a matter of how we're gonna, you know, credit them, you know.
I know.
Who read the water meter? That's Pay American?
Yes.
But it's not the error that they do. They didn't
It
do
wasn't
anything
there.
wrong, they just
No,
didn't.
they read the meter wrong.
No, they did not.
No, the meter,
They did
no, they
not.
didn't read the meter
The
wrong.
meter, the new meter is designed differently than the old.
Okay.
I'm sure.
And they did not tell the borough that the new meter was designed differently, so the borough was reading the numbers like they would have on the old meter, which was 10
times as much.
times.
They changed the unit of measure
25.
Yes.
without notifying.
Without notifying it, yeah.
Cubic meters,
Oh, we have overtime.
Just
And I told everybody in the mills, just look at your bills.
His average is 222.40 per quarter, so he'll use that up in less than a year.
Oh.
So it's not that.
It's not bad.
It wasn't 10 times.
No, and Kim said that's actually also, cause we're looking at prior, like last year, and she has since corrected the billing, so that higher billing is not factoring into these average numbers. I can see which ones she fixed, what they were before and after. That's also not including the increased sewer rate change that is now in effect for 25.
So it didn't go up 10 times, it went up 10%, basically.
I mean,
Little
yeah.
different story.
That's a big, yeah, that's way
Yeah.
different, okay.
All right.
I was under the understanding it went up 10 times, like how
So
did that?
we need a motion to approve, table approve, deny, reducing the sewer portion of the utility bill by $767.24 to the resident at 23 Vista Road. I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then I am gonna make a motion that we give credit. So I guess this motion says it's stated the table will deny issuing the property owner a refund check. So I'm gonna make a motion to deny issuing the property owner a refund check in the amount of $767.24 and instead give them the credit. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. He missed 3 times of it. He came back with it 3 times. 1180 Old Mill Lane.
this is a request for a credit on the sewer account for an outdoor water leak. That they're indicating, one, they're providing proof of repair, but two, they're indicating that obviously the water did not go into the sewer system as it was outdoors, it went into the ground. We have historically given credit on sewer billing for water that was used in exterior circumstances where we can prove it did not go into the sewer system.
So we have confirmation that this did not go into the,
Yes. Yeah, but in
Just
this
out of
case,
curiosity,
it's
if you look at that, the 1231 billion 24 is
Yeah.
one in question.
Yes.
Okay, so it's $1,400, right?
Yeah, Phyllis and I were just talking about this, the January 24th.
Every December,
January
it goes
20th.
nuts. Every December it goes nuts.
But in this case, he does have a repair bill showing that there was an outdoor leak that was actually fixed.
But look, I mean, that recurrence, the pattern.
And it is still $300, $260. All right, he has a bill to prove he had some repairs done.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we make the, okay, so I'll make a motion to approve reducing the sewer portion of the water bill for 1180 Oakville Road to be due to the amount of water not passing through the system. It's been
I'll
proven.
call you about your email.
I'll second that.
Stratix.
Motion
I'll
and
have
second,
Stratix
all
call
those
you
in
about
favor?
your
Oh,
email. Oh.
Put this again, like Nolan did last January too?
He didn't ask for a refund last February.
No, it says he was denied by council. Some more request was made in February 24th for a review.
Because it was not
There
proven.
was no proven.
The annual weeks are a little bit.
Well, yeah, I
We're
agree.
not scheduled.
But how am I gonna be able to prove that he
Understand,
had a
I'm just-
fraudulent person saying that he had a leak
I think
outside?
We spent a lot of time there trying to help them out.
See, we have another instance with one of his neighbors that we went through that, and,
It's not showing up.
and they never, you know, they couldn't prove where the water went, so we
Said no.
turned
If
down
we
their
prove it,
request.
we can't, if the water didn't go through the toilet
Yeah.
or somewhere, then we've never issued any relief. If we someone left the hose on and the hose broke, and it's out in the yard, we've generally done that. So, if they have proven that the leak was outside, it didn't go through the sewer system, I don't know if we have a choice, we have always issued this cover, so.
Can we identify the amount that the credit's gonna be?
I can have that identified by Tuesday for the agenda.
So we'll just pass this on to council for recommendation. Okay, I think we have to vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Maintenance and Parks Department, you got to sit here for an hour and 10 minutes to wait for this part time.
Learned a little something along the way too.
I told Greg he didn't have
Did
to
you?
come to the whole thing, but he's never been to a non-budget finance meeting, so I said given the topics, it may be educational.
See what he come back like.
Do you feel a little bit more relaxed with this meeting
No, I
than the
think I'm
budget?
good.
Doing this one first or the other one?
Just to, I think, Steve, you were the only person, besides Dave, that was not at personnel. So this was already discussed at personnel. Personnel was in favor of what's being requested, but asked that it be passed on to finances. There's obviously financial members that go along with it.
How much is this gonna cost the budget?
It's not gonna cost the budget anything, because we had in for a valve turning machine, and when we went to pursue it this year, they jacked the price up about $6,000 to $7,000. So
What was in the budget for that? That was like 40?
Yeah, it was 40. So we looked at that, and we have, also we had a mechanic that we had to let go, and we had some downtime where we weren't paying another mechanic. So we have some of that money in there as well. Also, our new mechanic can do a bunch of fabrication that we need for the valve machine. So we can do the fabrication this year for $8,000, and then hopefully next year put in for the valve machine, which would be, a lot less than $40,000. In the end, we're saving the overall budget's $8,643.
This year?
Correct.
That doesn't help us next year, year after year after year after.
No.
Are you talking about in terms of materials, or are you talking in terms of wages?
Wages.
Wages.
So, I mean, but keep in mind, these people would all be coming up on this bump this year anyway. We're just asking, for the most part.
Some of them. Some of them are ahead of schedule.
They're accelerating the
Yeah.
increase.
They're getting to their higher rate quicker.
Yeah. Now,
Why?
one,
Well, that's spelled out in the,
well, I can give you a really good reason. I have a senior guy that's been here for many, many years. And if you look at the first guy here, Charles Orr, this year alone, he got his water and sewer license and has a couple other things on that sheet too. Where this senior guy that we're paying top rate doesn't have a water or sewer license and hasn't had one ever.
So you're
these
moving
guys-
from categories within.
These
your
guys are
agreement.
willing to get the education and put in the time and benefit us, the borough, in repairs and, knowing about water meters. It's only gonna benefit us.
Like even
Yeah, we'd like to keep them.
Did they already get the, what is it, 3% we gave them this year?
Yeah, the contract is the contract.
Right.
Yeah.
This is in addition to that.
This is, they have a.
That you're moving up
Yeah,
They're-
they're moving up classifications.
classifications, that's the term.
Yeah.
For all
Part of the
those,
reason,
one,
I'm being
two,
devil's
three,
advocate,
four,
part of the reason
five.
we negotiated a contract is so that we can follow the appropriate steps, that's where we,
the contract does give language that says management
I-
reserves the right to do
I
this.
understand.
If you look at Kevin Riker, now, this guy is, he's a key guy in the maintenance department. With the water and sewer, we came across a system called CS Data. The original plan was to put all of this out to engineering. Engineering costs would have cost us $150,000 to $200,000. Kevin, I think our CS Data
It was $2,000.
was $2,000. And with Kevin's expertise, we're saving that money. So if you look years down the road, you could add that in there. I don't think it's going to save all of it, but it definitely compensates some of it.
Well, conceptually, I can agree if he has additional qualifications, moving up in class, I have no issue at all with that.
That's all this is.
Greg
That's all it
included
is.
Greg included a summary, I don't know which one of those tabs it is, for each employee he's requesting the increase for, explaining a little bit about why. That was also reviewed by the personnel
So
committee.
this went through personnel, and
Yes.
personnel's approved all this to send to us.
Yes.
So I'm not that interested in that, because I believe that's all good.
Did
That's that.
the reasoning for the increase in classification?
Yeah, it's just a matter of the financial
It's
impact.
financial
Right,
aspect
so
I'm discussing.
I
That's
can
why
help
we
you.
moved it here.
I can help you
Right.
with the financial impact of it.
Can you help me next year too?
I can.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because Alex, by next year, would be at the rate that I'm asking to put him at this year.
Okay.
Logan,
fair.
Logan would be there in 3 or 4 months anyway.
This year?
This year. Tyler would be there, I forget what it was, 3 or 4 months, this year as well. So Kevin and Charles and Mason are the 3 guys that, Mason will be a year ahead of his schedule, Chuck's a year ahead, Kevin's 2-3 years ahead of his schedule.
It's gonna mean certifications or things like that.
Their classifications, how their contracts are written now.
So,
The biggest guy is Kevin, but Kevin is our biggest savings.
so just, I'm not arguing
Yeah.
any of this, I just wanna make sure I'm being, if we're pushing his contract up for 3 years, we're gonna be pushing his contract and paying for his contract for 2 or 3 years for as long as he works here at the borough.
Till he would eventually reach the 6,
Well, until he gets to the maximum.
Right.
Which
So
will
for
change
four-
by then anyway.
4 years or whatever. I think he'll be here 2 years. So yeah, for 4 years we'd be carrying an extra load. But he does bring a lot to the table.
Were these approved by you or reviewed?
Mhm. These have all been fantastic additions to their respective departments.
I mean, it's glad to hear
Yeah, I'm
that
not
you have
questioning
good
that.
people
I'm not
working, we have
questioning
people who aren't just bitching and complaining about working, it sounds like you actually.
Yeah, that want to work and show up and
And I know we have some people who do a tendency not to do the other way, I get it.
I would say not just work, they wanna learn and be an asset.
That's the, to me,
They're
not being on a
motivated,
personnel
yes.
committee, the fact that they went and got licenses, they're trying to continue
Yeah.
their education within their industry, I'm good with it.
Lo-
I just wanna be the devil's advocate of saying it's gonna cost us a little bit, but it's not significant. If Kevin's the only one that's gonna be getting to a higher tier 2 or 3 years ahead of time, well, let's take it out of your height of budget time.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
And that 33 is for the year, and that's for the.
That's for this year, yeah. And Phil's helping with some of the overtime costs. We tried to factor everything in so you could see it.
Phyllis, remember how much this is costing the budget next year? when we-
I will remind you.
So that we can cut that right off the top. All right, I don't have any complaints. If we have good employees, I think it's important to keep them somewhat within the contract. Anybody have any questions on that? All right, so I'll make a motion to approve recommending the council the proposed rate increases for Charles Orr, Logan Temple, and Kevin Riker, Alex Evans, Tyler Harris, and Mason Bennett. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And I should have mentioned that it was recommended by personnel committee also. Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.